Labor has claimed the once safe Liberal seat of Aston in Melbourne's outer east. It had been tipped to be a close race, but few people and neither party predicted such a strong swing to Labor.
The Prime Minister says it's an endorsement for what he calls Labor's positive agenda, while the opposition has admitted there is work to be done to win back the Liberal Party's base in Victoria.
Well, Nicholas Hines is in Melbourne for us this morning, and political reporter Tom Lowry is analysing the political reaction from Canberra. Nicholas, we want to come to you first, and obviously emotions still running high this morning on both sides.
Yeah, truly, I think it's quite rare to see that level of excitement in a cafe in Melbourne's outer east at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. But Mary Doyle certainly still very excited this morning as she fronted constituents as the member for Aston for the first time. No doubt it was a very long night of celebrating at Labor's election night headquarters in Boronia last night. You could hear that emotion in Mary Doyle's speech when she gave her victory speech last night and again today, and really the word of the weekend has been historic. As you said, neither party expecting Labor to do this, not only winning a seat off the opposition in a by-election for the first time in more than a century, but also winning a traditionally safe Liberal seat. Mary Doyle recording swings of 6.5% to Labor, with the current count showing Labor on almost 54% of the two candidate preferred count. Mary Doyle was joined by Anthony Albanese at a local cafe in Bayswater this morning, speaking to reporters. And again, you can hear the emotion in her voice.
Last night, the people of Aston gave me the gigantic honour of being their local representative. And I promise every single one of you this: whether you voted for me or not, I will always listen. I will always do the best I can for this area, and I will always put locals first.
And as Mary Doyle prepares for a brand new career and what no doubt will be a big change of pace, already the age-old questions of what this means for the leaders on both sides are being asked. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, though, quick to race out of Aston, heading to the airport to head to Perth for an event later this afternoon.
All right, Nicholas, we'll leave you there in Melbourne and head now to Tom Lowry, who's in Canberra for us this morning. Tom, how significant is this for both the Prime Minister but also the opposition leader?
Yeah, as Nicholas touched on there, it's pretty hard to play down the significance of this in a historic sense. You know, a government taking a seat in a by-election from the opposition for the first time in more than a century, and what has traditionally been a very safe Liberal seat in Melbourne's outer suburbs. So you can see why the Prime Minister was so keen to race to Aston so early this morning for that meeting with Mary Doyle and that press conference as well, talking this up as a big endorsement of his government and his government's agenda, because this is a big political victory. Labor wasn't necessarily confident of this result. In the weeks ahead of this by-election, they had been talking this up as a test of Peter Dutton's leadership to see how big a swing Peter Dutton could receive towards the Liberal Party in that direction. But, of course, Mr Albanese very happy to accept this result this morning. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
The feeling on the ground was always very positive. I knew we had an outstanding candidate in Mary Doyle, and I knew that we'd run a good campaign. And I believe that the government, with our positive agenda, is being well received. We won't get everything perfect, no government does, but what we'll do is try every single day.
On the flip side, this is a difficult result for the Liberal Party and for Peter Dutton. The Liberals hold just 2 seats in metropolitan Melbourne now, and this was once quite a safe Liberal seat on a margin of more than 10% heading into the last election last year. And a lot of Liberal voters here clearly having shifted their vote from the Liberal Party to Labor just in the past 10 months or so. Peter Dutton says he will stay on as leader, though he does accept responsibility for this defeat. He was asked this morning by David Spears on Insiders if this would spark a shift in direction for the Liberal Party in a policy sense and in a philosophical sense too. But it was pretty clear from Peter Dutton that that won't be the case. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
I think in recent years, the Liberal Party's allowed itself to be defined by our opponents, and I think it's time for us to take that back, to stand up for what we believe in, whether it's trendy or not. And some of that, I believe, is what the Australian public demand, particularly in our seats in outer metro areas and regional areas, and that's what we're going to do.
It doesn't sound like this morning you're signalling any shift, any change, any new direction.
Well, if you're asking me about the fundamentals of our party, they're not going to change.
So I think it's fair to say there's a lot of encouragement in this result for the government, but a pretty humbling night for the Liberal Party and Peter Dutton.
All right, Tom Lowry there in Canberra and Nicholas Hines in Melbourne. Thank you both.